So when I started out to take the bar, I was a JD PhD, and I had already graduated with my law degree a year and a half earlier, and I was struggling with whether or not I wanted to be a lawyer or whether or not I wanted to be a professor. Of course, all my lawyer faculty friends said I needed to study for the bar, and all of my professor mentor types said that I needed to go be a professor. Both of them said that my career would be ruined if I didn't do what they suggested. So I began 2 tracks, and had actually been on 2 tracks for quite some time, for about a year in my job search, because I wasn't just going to take any job that I got. So while I was working on my dissertation, I also started prepping for the New York State Bar. I took, as everybody took at that time, because they were the leading one. I was in New York, upstate New York. I went to the State University of New York at Buffalo. Yay! And the only bar review course in town was Barbary. And at that time, it cost me $900 to pay. It was so cheap then to pay for my bar review course, and it involved sitting in on classes and watching the videotapes. Hands down, the best way to take the bar, from how I started to study and what I would suggest for both LSAT and the bar, is that you just have to do question after question after question. You can listen to lectures, you can watch people work problems, you can read the analysis, but for my money, what helped me with the LSAT and what was getting me through on my practice bar sections I was studying for was doing the practice tests over and over and over. So I started prepping because I was also teaching full-time, and I was finishing my dissertation, and I was commuting, and I was studying for the bar. I started about 6 months out. So I had been taking the class, but Barbary allowed me to continue to sit in on areas that I wanted to work on. I found that very, very useful, by the way. It has changed massively since then. I can tell you this in terms of how has the bar changed. For one, the cost of taking a bar review exam has become ridiculous. So I paid $900 for my course, but Barbary also lets you act as a salesperson, and so you also got a reduced amount on the number of other law students who got signed up. And since I started so far in advance, I was actually able to recoup back about another $300 off of the cost of my bar exam. I'll tell you, here's one thing that I think is really important. You need to understand the kind of culture of each law, the law culture of every state you go to. So the Texas bar had for a long time oil and gas on it, right? And so that was a really big deal related to the Texas bar. Up in the Northwest, they have more issues they can have periodically related to, like, environmental protection, things along that line. New York prides itself on being one of the toughest, on being the second hardest bar in the country, California being the first. But the only reason why California has been the first is because they have the lowest passage rates, the percentage of people. It's not because of the substantive areas. If you were to look at the substantive areas on the bar, New York State has among the hardest because it covers 7 substantive areas. Not all of the bars do that. So one thing I want people to really think about is that when you get ready to take your bar, and if you know generally where you want to try to target to shoot for, 1, try to find states that have reciprocal arrangements, so reciprocity, so that if you pass the bar in New York State, I would have been able to practice in Maine, in Connecticut, in Vermont, because New York had such a tough bar. So reciprocity is very important. And 2, go bar shopping. I mean, look at where you think, if you're worried about passing the bar and you know you want to live in a general area, look and see what bar is required. For example, Wisconsin doesn't have a requirement for a bar. You go to a state accredited law school in Wisconsin, you become licensed as an attorney. So you need to do more research on your bar, basically, and the bar that you want to take as you're making these decisions.